Supreme Court Chamber. The ruling is short. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. With that sentence, thousands lose something they did not know could be taken. A clerk finishes the line, and the room does not move. Black robes stay still behind the high bench. Paper rustles once, then stops. In the gallery, people breathe like they are afraid to be heard. On the table below, a thin case file sits open, its corners softened by travel and handling. One sentence lands, and something private becomes public property. Outside, the marble steps glow in hard daylight. A woman stands among men in dark suits and stiff hats. Her hands are empty. Her future is not. She is an adult, poor and alone in a city built for distance. She does not hear the sentence as a metaphor. She hears it as a door locking. The story begins long before this chamber. In the early part of the century, conference rooms fill with charts and confident voices. County officials, physicians, and professors trade theories about bloodlines and burden. They speak about the cost of prisons and poorhouses. They speak about the state as a gardener, trimming what it calls weeds. Pamphlets move across desks. Photographs of faces are pinned beside family trees. The word eugenics sits on the tongue like science, clean and modern, even as it carries the stink of contempt. At state fairs, adults walk past exhibits that look like public health lessons. Boards show skull measurements, heredity diagrams, and slogans about fitness. Men in suits hand out leaflets. Women in plain dresses listen, nod, and move on. The message is simple. Some people are a problem, and the problem can be solved before it is born. In New York, a research office catalogs names like inventory. Clerks type, index cards, stack folders, and draw lines through family trees. A model sterilization law is drafted and mailed to lawmakers who want a solution that looks official. The language is polished. It talks about protection and procedure. It never talks about fear. In Virginia, institutions expand behind fences. The Virginia State Colony for Epileptics and Feeble-Minded rises on open land. Brick buildings, narrow windows, long corridors, locks that click without emotion. Inside, adults are sorted by labels written in neat handwriting. Feeble-minded, imbecile, epileptic, moral defective. A supervisor can write a word, and a life becomes a category. In Richmond, lawmakers lean over a bill. The language is careful, almost tender. It claims to protect the patient. It claims to protect society. It builds a board, a hearing, an appeal, a process that looks like fairness. It does not say what it is in plain speech. It is a law that lets the state cut the future out of a body. A superintendent in the colony, Dr. Albert Priddy, reads the new authority like a weapon. He has a problem. If he starts operating, the courts might stop him. So he looks for a test case. Not a violent man, not a headline. He needs someone the public will not defend. A young adult woman named Carrie Buck is already trapped in the system that will use her. She grows up in poverty. Work comes early. Respect comes late, if it comes at all. She is taken into a foster home, a house where her labor matters more than her voice. Her school record is thin, her options thinner. When she is assaulted by a man connected to the household, the scandal does not land on him. It lands on her body. The foster family moves fast. They talk about morality. They talk about weakness. They talk about heredity as if it is a stain. Paperwork appears, signed, stamped, filed. A wagon ride becomes a transfer. A doorway becomes a gate. Carrie Buck is placed inside the colony, not for a crime, but for being inconvenient. The colony is quiet in the way quiet can be cruel. Footsteps echo. Keys jingle. A nurse guides Carrie Buck to an examination room. A physician asks questions that are not questions. They are traps. Can you read? Can you count? Do you understand? A pencil scratches notes. The verdict is decided before the last question is finished. Carrie Buck learns the routine of institutional life. Meals on schedule, work assignments, inspections. Women in plain dresses fold sheets and scrub floors. Men in work shirts sweep halls and tend grounds. Everyone watches everyone. Privacy dissolves into rule. Dr. Pretty prepares his case. He points to the file on Carrie Buck's mother, already confined, already labeled. He points to the file on Carrie Buck as if paper is destiny. He points to Carrie Buck's body and claims the future can be prevented. He speaks in the language of mercy, as if cutting is kindness. A petition is drafted to sterilize Carrie Buck. It travels through the board created by the law. Members sit at a table, faces serious, voices low. They vote on a life in minutes. A notice is written. A hearing is scheduled. Counsel is assigned. In the courtroom in Virginia, the air smells of ink and wood polish. Carrie Buck sits at the defense table with a lawyer who does not fight like a man who believes. Behind him, the colony superintendent watches with the calm patience of someone who expects success. The state's witnesses speak with the confidence of people protected by their own status. They describe Carrie Buck as feeble-minded. They describe her family line as defective. They describe her as a danger that can be prevented with a procedure. Carrie Buck does not get a witness who knows her, who can describe her as she is. She gets a process that pretends to listen. The judge rules for the state. The law has its test case. Dr. Pretty dies not long after, but the machine stays alive. His successor, Dr. John Hendren Bell, steps into the role. The case takes his name, Buck versus Bell. It climbs the ladder toward Washington. On a train north, the country slides past the windows. Fields, towns, smoke, river bridges. In a bag, the case file rides like contraband. Carrie Buck stays in the colony, waiting for a decision made by men who will never meet her. The Supreme Court hears argument. The room is formal, polished, insulated. Lawyers speak about police power and public welfare. They speak about vaccination cases and state authority. They do not speak about Carrie Buck as an adult woman with a nervous system that can feel pain. They speak about her as a type. One justice does not join the majority, but the dissent is silent. There is no written warning. No public flare, no brake pressed hard enough. The decision is 8 voices against 1 absence, and the absence does not save anyone. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, Jr. writes the opinion. His sentences are sharp. He praises the law's safeguards. He treats the operation as a minor burden compared to what the state claims it prevents. Then he writes the line that will echo in hospital halls and state board minutes. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. The decision spreads fast. Newspapers reduce it to a headline. Administrators read it like permission. Doctors read it like cover. Across the country, sterilization statutes already exist, and now they look safer. If the Supreme Court can bless it, a hospital superintendent can order it. In Virginia, the colony schedules procedures. A board signs off. A nurse walks a woman down a corridor. An operating room waits with white sheets and metal instruments. A doctor washes hands and speaks in the calm voice of routine. A form is on a clipboard, a signature line that means little to the person being cut. Carrie Buck is brought in. She is not told the full truth. She is told it is for her health. She is told it is the law. She is told to lie still. A mask comes down. The ceiling blurs. Her body is opened and altered, and when she wakes, the future is gone. She returns to the ward with a dull ache that does not explain itself. The staff move on to the next case. The paperwork is filed. The operation is counted, not mourned. The law has turned flesh into administration. The catastrophe is not one operation. It is repetition. It is a system that scales. In other states, the targets shift and widen. Adults with disabilities, adults in psychiatric hospitals, adults in prisons, adults judged promiscuous, adults judged poor. Women are targeted heavily because a state that fears births reaches first for the body that can carry them. Doctors and social workers create lists. County boards meet. Signatures appear. People disappear into operating rooms and return quiet. In California, institutions grow into small cities. In North Carolina, county welfare offices hold quiet power. In Indiana, early sterilization statutes become a model. Across the nation, a surgeon can point to Buck versus Bell as a shield. In meetings, officials talk about saving money and improving stock, as if people are livestock. Some people try to resist. A woman tells a nurse no, and the nurse writes non-compliant. A man refuses to sign and is told his release will be delayed. A patient asks a question and is answered with silence. The state holds time, food, shelter, and freedom. Consent becomes a performance staged for files. Years pass. The country fights a world war. Propaganda posters talk about freedom. Inside state hospitals, forced sterilizations continue. Officials speak of efficiency. They speak of costs. They speak of saving society from future burden. They do not speak of the bodies in recovery beds. In conference rooms, foreign visitors study American statutes and take notes. They admire the administrative clarity. They admire the way a court has made it legitimate. The United States exports the idea that a government can manage reproduction through law, and it does not even need to hide it. The evidence sits in plain sight. Annual reports list procedures. State boards record approvals. Hospital logs show dates, names, diagnoses, and outcomes. Photographs are taken of buildings, not of the people altered inside them. In archives, folders pile up. A clerk can pull a file and see the pattern, repetition with official stamps. The moral fog thickens in the middle years of the century. News from Europe exposes what racial science can become when married to state power. Some American scientists step back, suddenly cautious. Yet Buck versus Bell remains on the books. It is not erased. It is simply used more quietly, or justified with new language. In 1942, another Supreme Court case reaches Washington. Skinner versus Oklahoma challenges sterilization for certain crimes. The court pushes back, warning that procreation is a basic right. The ruling limits the reach, but it does not bury Buck versus Bell. The old sentence stays alive, waiting for the right file, the right institution, the right unprotected person. Carrie Buck lives with what was done to her. She is released from the colony. She takes work where she can find it. She carries the ordinary burdens of rent, meals, and aging. There is no public ceremony. There is no restitution. There is only a scar and an absence that never stops being present. Decades later, historians and lawyers sift through the record. They find letters that show planning, not accident. They find testimony coached to fit the law. They find that intelligence claims were exaggerated, sometimes invented. They find that legal defense was compromised, as if the outcome was chosen before the first hearing. The paper trail does not whisper, it states. In Virginia, the sterilization law remains for generations, then is repealed. Other states repeal later. Some never apologize. Some apologize without cost. Some create compensation programs after most survivors are already gone. A few officials stand at microphones and say the word sorry, and the word falls flat in the air. In courtrooms, Buck versus Bell is rarely cited, but it is still there. It has never been formally overturned. It sits in the United States reports as a warning carved into legal stone. A sentence written in a quiet chamber still reaches into policy conversations about disability, poverty, and state control. Look back at the Supreme Court chamber. The ruling was short. The harm was long. A law that allowed forced sterilizations did not need secrecy. It needed paperwork, deference, and a public willing to treat certain adults as less than human. It needed a court willing to call cutting a small thing. It needed a sentence that turned bodies into numbers. The open question is simple, and it is not safe. When the state decides a group is unfit, who is next, and who will stop it before the file is opened and the door locks?